Carrying around excess weight can be hard on you physically, emotionally, and socially. And this can be made worse when we're dealing with thyroid issues like Hashimoto's. But let's say you've made some changes and you started to see your weight progress in the right direction, but for whatever reason, that progression didn't continue and things have stalled out. In today's video, we're going to talk about 9 causes of weight loss stalls and what you can do about them. That way you can start to see improvements in your weight and also optimize your health overall. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, thanks again for joining me. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you click the bell and also subscribe to the channel. That way you don't miss videos when I post them every single Thursday. My name is Dr. Brad Bodel, and I specialize in helping women with Hashimoto's and low thyroid to lose weight and improve their energy naturally. But sometimes when we're having a weight loss stall and we're kind of caught up in our day-to-day grind, it can be hard to know where that is coming from. So let's jump right into the 9 causes of these stalls, starting with inflammatory foods. So of course, when we're talking about weight loss, food isn't going to be the only driver of whether or not we lose or gain weight, but it's going to be one of the main ones. And this is particularly important when we have an autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's. Whenever autoimmunity is present, it means that we've lost tolerance for our environment, and that makes us more likely to have an immune reaction or an inflammatory response when we're exposed to different stressors in the environment. One of those things can be food, and with Hashimoto's, we know that there's certain foods that are more likely to cause that reaction than in people who are not dealing with the same sort of health condition. Many times what I see going on is people are trying to choose the right foods and they're trying to cut back on their calories, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but they're still eating foods that are inflammatory to their system. Whenever this happens, it's going to cause an immune reaction, and this will prevent us from losing weight, no matter the caloric or hormonal response. For example, maybe you switched from white bread to whole wheat bread, or from regular yogurt to low-fat yogurt. I get what you're trying to do, but in either one of these situations, people with Hashimoto's can react to the grains in the bread, either white or whole wheat, or they can react to the dairy products in the regular yogurt or the low-fat yogurt. So it doesn't matter in terms of the nutritional density, it doesn't matter in terms of the caloric density. What's going on here is that we have a higher likelihood of reacting to the proteins in the grain, the proteins in the dairy, and for people with Hashimoto's, this is going to be a deal breaker in their ability to lose weight. To help get a better handle on managing inflammatory foods, I typically recommend that people start with a less restrictive diet and move to a more restrictive diet depending on their needs. So if you have Hashimoto's, avoiding grains and dairy is a must, and you have to assess how your body responds to those foods. In addition to that, you may need to remove other less common food allergens, and that can include things like corn, soy, eggs, nuts and seeds, and nightshade vegetables. Now, I'm not saying everyone is going to be reactive to all of these foods, but if you are having continued symptoms, you're going to want to check and see how you feel if you remove them from your diet. The take-home point here is this: if you're eating food and you're feeling worse, that is a strong indicator that we haven't managed this aspect of our physiology appropriately. We are still having inflammatory immune responses, and that is going to be prohibitive in your goals to lose weight long term. The number 2 cause of a weight loss stall is not managing your macronutrients appropriately. So macronutrients refers to the amount of protein, fat, or carbohydrate that's in a food, and depending on the ratios of one to another, we can either facilitate weight loss or weight gain. I typically have people start with protein as their priority and then work from there. And my usual recommendation is to have people take their weight in kilograms, so you take your weight in pounds and divide by 2.2, and then multiply that by 1.5. That will give you a baseline number of the amount of grams of protein you should be taking in on a daily basis. While research shows that there may be a limit to the amount of amino acids that we can take in at one meal, and amino acids are the building blocks for proteins, it also shows that in overfeeding studies where we increase the amount of protein that an animal or a human is taking in, it doesn't seem to contribute to weight gain. So protein can be hugely important because not only is it extremely satiating, but because of the ways it reacts hormonally with our body, it won't contribute to excess weight if we are managing our other macronutrients appropriately. So once we're hitting our daily protein goal on a regular basis, then we can look at the levers of fat and carbohydrates. Some people are going to do better with fat as the primary supplier of their caloric needs, and other people are going to do better with carbohydrates, and we have to determine what that is for you. I typically recommend that people go in the direction of upping their fats and decreasing their carbohydrates, and that just comes from a common sense approach. Most people who come to me and are struggling with their weight come from a background of having a higher carbohydrate diet. So if that's not serving us well, we obviously need to do something different, and that's where modulating the fat in relationship to the protein and carbohydrates can be beneficial for us. In terms of amounts, a good place to start is eating equal amounts of fat to protein in grams per day. From there, some people will do better with a higher fat to protein ratio, and others will do better with a higher protein to fat ratio. It just depends on what your metabolism needs, so adjust the fat depending on how you feel and how your weight is responding. For carbohydrates, a great starting point is less than 100 net carbohydrates per day. And just as a quick reminder, net carbohydrates is the total amount of carbohydrates consumed minus the fiber. However, some people will need to reduce their carb load even lower, going less than 50 net grams per day or even less than 20 net grams per day. It all depends on your health history, your current weight, and also your activity level. But the big take-home point is that if you're eating food and noticing a change in your energy, either feeling more energized or feeling more fatigued, both are indicators that the amount of carbohydrates you're consuming is not good for your body. Reason number 3 for having a weight loss stall is not doing a good job with your food journaling or your food tracking. Now, is this something that I think needs to be done for forever? No. But if we're having problems, then it's really important that we actually get the data and have a clear idea of what we're consuming on a weekly basis. This is something that's really easy to do, and you can make it as simple as writing down your food choices in a journal, taking pictures of every single one of your meals, or using an app on your phone like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer. Doesn't matter which one, it's whatever's easiest for you and whatever you prefer. The reason this is so important is because documentation makes us accountable. And for many people, when they start their weight loss journey, they're very excited and motivated, but over time, foods, whether it's carbohydrates or inflammatory foods, can sneak back in if we're not paying attention. And when we need to do this stuff on a consistent basis for months or years sometimes, it can be hard to be consistent all the time. So if you're not seeing changes, use one of these tools to gain a little perspective and make sure that foods that don't serve your body well aren't creeping back into your usual schedule. Number 4 on our list isn't so much a cause of weight loss stall, but it's an explanation for why we might perceive that our weight is stalling. And that is, how are we tracking our progress? If you're only looking at the number on the scale, it's going to give you a very small window into what is actually going on with your metabolism. Instead, we always want to have multiple markers to be able to assess the overall trends when it comes to our health. I recommend taking measurements of your waist, chest, and arms, in addition to also taking pictures. You'll often find that sometimes you won't be noticing much change, but you might see a relative or a friend that you haven't seen in some time, and they'll see a dramatic difference in the way that your face and your body looks. This can be a great indicator that your body is changing, even if the number on the scale is staying about the same. Reason number 5 for a weight loss stall is not getting consistent or enough hours of sleep. Sleep is huge for making sure that our metabolism works, and it's been shown that people who work swing shift or night shift have a more difficult time not only with losing weight, but also the development of other chronic diseases. Make sure that you're getting at least 8 hours of sleep per night, and try to make sure that the time you're going to sleep and the time that you're waking up stays relatively consistent for you. Sleep is one of those areas that I get a little bit of pushback from my patients on, but it's really non-negotiable. If you're someone who has to wake up earlier because of your job, then you just have to go to sleep earlier. I'm with you on this. I know it's not always ideal, but I don't make the rules, your body does, and it's something that is really critical to make sure that it is optimized in terms of its function. Reason number 6 is alcohol consumption. Now, I know a lot of people like to have alcoholic drinks in social situations, or maybe you use them to unwind at the end of the day. But the fact of the matter is, alcohol does not help us to lose weight. Not only is alcohol a toxin to our body, but it can also be converted into fat. That fat can be stored at the site of our liver, or it can be distributed around the body. In addition, alcohol can also interrupt our sleep patterns. So, as we just discussed, sleep is really critical to helping us lose weight, and alcohol can affect multiple areas that can then make it difficult for us to achieve those goals. I would recommend eliminating alcohol completely until you achieve your goal weight. Now, if it's something that you absolutely need to have in your life, make sure you're paying attention to the kinds of alcohol you're consuming and avoid the ones with inflammatory food proteins that can cause problems for Hashimoto's. Additionally, make sure you're not consuming it on a weekly basis, as that is enough to interrupt your weight loss goals. Instead, limit it to less than one time a month to have the best opportunity to continue to see progression. Reason number 7 for weight loss stalls is exercise, either too little or too much. When it comes to autoimmunity, the most important thing about exercise is the way that it helps us to manage inflammation and support our immune system, rather than just being used to burn off calories. That means if you're not taking the time to intentionally engage with physical activity on a regular basis, that's a problem. But on the other hand, something I see a lot of is people overdoing it with exercise. We've been told so many times that if we're going to lose weight, we have to reduce our calories and increase our activity levels. And what that leads to is people spending 1, 2, or 3 hours at the gym every single day of the week just trying to get a hold on their weight and help their bodies burn more than they're taking in. By spending all that time working out, we can actually increase the amount of inflammation in the body and prevent the necessary time that is required for us to heal and recover. In a strange and twisted sort of way, this kind of leaves us with the same problem that no exercise leaves us with, which is increased inflammation in the body, an immune system that is not tolerating it well, and therefore, as we try to lose weight, we cannot do it because an inflamed person does not lose weight. So the better that we can normalize that function, irregardless of what the calorie counts and the calories being burned looks like, that will help us to achieve our goals in a much more efficient manner. The way that we know we're doing the right amount of exercise is afterwards we should feel energized and invigorated, rather than beat down and exhausted. Sure, there's going to be some soreness with any type of new activity, but if you need to sleep after exercise, if it's taking you multiple days to recover before you can get back at it, these are great indicators that you're doing too much and need to back off to allow yourself to have good outcomes. Speaking of calories, the 8th cause for a weight loss stall is either eating too many calories or eating too few. And I just quickly like to note that many of us get very hung up on calories, and I think it's because it's what we've all been taught. And although calories are a factor in your weight loss journey, they're not the main driving factor. And I think the best example that shows that is many people go on low calorie diets for extended periods of time. And what we would expect to see, if that was the main factor, would be that these people would lose weight. And as many of you know, that's not always the case. Interestingly enough, if we get our macronutrients right and we normalize our hormonal response to food, you'll find that certain people will notice that they can do better with more calories or less calories than they're typically used to. For example, someone who does very well with burning fat for fuel may find out that they can increase their caloric intake and do just fine. Others who might do a little bit better with a protein-centric diet might be able to cut back on their caloric intake and not even notice because they're more full and satiated throughout the day. However, as a general rule, I think it's a good idea to figure out your basal metabolic rate, or BMR, by using a BMR calculator online. You can put in your height, your weight, your age, and also your activity levels, and that will help you to better understand what you're burning on an average day. If your goal is to lose weight, which it probably is if you're watching this video, I would recommend setting the activity level to low or sedentary. That way you don't overestimate your BMR. Once you have a better idea of what your BMR looks like, you're going to want to set a goal of 300 to 400 calories less than that BMR. So the BMR plus your activity levels should be about 300 to 400 calories more than the amount of calories you're taking in from your food. Again, depending on your dietary approach, you may be able to get away with less of a deficit or more, as long as your energy, your hunger, and your brain function stays stable for you. But this is something that you're going to want to play around with a little bit and see what fits you best. And finally, the 9th cause for a weight loss stall is stress. And this is something that I really wish I had a magic pill for. I don't yet, but if I find one, you guys will be the first to know. But in my clinic, we use everything we can, from physical exercise to breathing exercises to meditation to journaling to time alone. You name it, we use it, because this can be such a huge factor, not only in terms of people's ability to lose weight, but in how they feel overall. In fact, stress can be so profound that we can be doing everything else right, but if there's something really bugging us, really stressing us, that can be enough to interrupt progress in all these other areas. So sometimes the answer is as simple as going on daily 10-minute walks. And sometimes it can be as hard as needing to change your job. But whatever it is, we have to do something to get a handle on that stress before we're able to lose weight appropriately. But if all else fails, sometimes we have to sit back, reflect on our life, and admit that things are a little hectic right now. Of course, we always want to do our best, but don't add to the stress levels by thinking that you're a failure because you can't lose weight at this particular junction in your life. So now that you have a better understanding of what can cause a weight loss stall, I want to throw one more thing at you, which is don't call something a stall when it really isn't. So as much as we would like it to be, weight loss is not linear, and it often doesn't come along as fast as we would like. Sometimes we'll have really good weeks or good months, and other times we won't. But just because we're not losing weight on a particular week doesn't mean that we're not continuing to see progress. So just because the number on the scale isn't changing as fast as we want, make sure that you're also looking at your measurements, looking at things like your energy, your sleep, and your focus. And if you can take all of these things together in context, then you'll have a much better idea of how your health is improving overall. If you liked today's video but are looking for more ways to support your thyroid, you can either send me an email at contact@seattlethyroidhelp.com, where I can help you to get set up with a free consultation to see if we would be a good fit to work together one-on-one. You can also download my free guide, which you can find at the link in the description box below, which is 109 foods to boost your thyroid and improve your energy, which includes a list of foods that I do and don't recommend for people who are starting out on their thyroid healing journey. But thanks as always for hanging out today. I always appreciate it if you can like and share the video. That way we can spread this message and hopefully help some more people out with their health. If you haven't done so, check out some of my other videos. You're always welcome to leave me a comment or send me a message if you have any questions. My name is Dr. Brad Bodel, and I'll see you guys next Thursday.